If someone in your life is doing this one thing, they don't just dislike you, they actively hate you and want to see you destroyed. And most people never recognize it until it's too late. They've already stolen years of your life, your confidence, your peace. Stay until the end, because what I'm about to reveal in the final moments will change how you see every relationship in your life forever. Hidden poison. You know that feeling when something feels off about a person, but you can't quite put your finger on it? When every interaction leaves you drained, confused, questioning yourself. That's not your imagination. That's your soul recognizing a predator. See, most people think hatred is loud. They think it's screaming, fighting, obvious aggression. But the most dangerous hatred is quiet. It's surgical. It's the person who smiles at you while slowly, methodically destroying your spirit from the inside out. I've been studying human behavior and ancient wisdom for over 2 decades, and there's one pattern that keeps showing up across cultures, across time periods, across every spiritual tradition. When someone truly hates you, they don't attack your body. They attack your sense of reality. They make you question everything you know about yourself. They plant seeds of doubt so deep that you start believing their version of who you are instead of trusting your own inner knowing. And the scariest part, they do it so subtly that you think it's love, silent warfare. This isn't about the obvious enemies in your life. Those people are actually doing you a favor. They're showing you exactly where they stand. No, this is about the people who claim to care about you while systematically undermining everything that makes you who you are. They study you, they learn your insecurities, your dreams, your fears, and then they use that information like a weapon. When you're excited about something, they find a way to deflate it. When you're vulnerable, they twist it against you. When you're strong, they remind you of your past failures. But here's what makes this so insidious. They do it under the guise of helping you. I'm just being realistic. I'm trying to protect you. I don't want you to get hurt. Sound familiar? This is psychological warfare, and most people don't even realize they're under attack until they've already lost themselves completely. The pattern. Every person who's ever tried to destroy someone they hate follows the same playbook. It doesn't matter if it's a romantic partner, a family member, a friend, or a colleague. The pattern is always the same. First, they isolate you, not physically. That would be too obvious. They isolate you emotionally. They become your primary source of validation, your main confidant, your go-to person for everything. They make themselves indispensable to your emotional world. Then, they start rewriting your history. Remember that time you succeeded at something. They'll remind you of the luck involved, the help you had, the ways it wasn't really your achievement. Remember that time you failed. They'll bring it up again and again, making it bigger than it was, using it as evidence of who you really are. Slowly, your own memories start to feel unreliable. Your own judgment starts to feel questionable. You begin to depend on their version of reality because they've made you doubt your own. Emotional manipulation. But the real damage happens in the space between their words. It's not what they say, it's what they don't say. It's the support they withhold when you need it most. It's the encouragement they save for everyone else. It's the way they celebrate other people's wins while treating yours like inevitable losses. They become masters at making you feel small while appearing to do nothing wrong. They perfect the art of the backhanded compliment, the subtle put-down, the questioning look that makes you second-guess yourself. That's a nice dress. It really hides your figure well. I'm proud of you for trying, even though it didn't work out. You're so brave to put yourself out there like that. Each statement sounds supportive on the surface, but underneath, there's poison. And over time, that poison accumulates in your system until you can barely remember who you were before they showed up. The reality. Here's what they know that you don't. Your power terrifies them. Your light, your potential, your natural ability to create and love and grow, it triggers something in them that they can't control. So they set out to dim that light, not because they don't see it, but because they see it so clearly, it makes them hate themselves. This isn't about you not being enough. This is about you being too much for someone who's chosen to stay small. And instead of rising to meet your energy, they've decided to pull you down to theirs. They don't want to destroy you because you're weak. They want to destroy you because you're strong, and your strength reminds them of everything they're not willing to become. Internal damage. The worst part about this kind of psychological attack is how it rewires your brain. When someone you trust consistently treats your reality as questionable, your mind starts to adapt. You begin to filter everything through their perspective instead of your own. You stop trusting your instincts. You stop believing in your perceptions. You start to think that maybe you really are too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. Maybe you really do need them to help you see things clearly. This is called gaslighting, but it's more than just lying about facts. It's a systematic assault on your sense of self. It's making you doubt not just what you remember, but who you are at your core. And the cruelest irony? The more damaged you become, the more they point to that damage as evidence that they were right about you all along. See? This is what I was trying to protect you from. This is why you need me. Recognition signs. So how do you know if this is happening to you? How do you recognize the signs when you're in the middle of it and your judgment feels compromised? First, pay attention to how you feel after spending time with this person. Do you leave their presence feeling energized and inspired, or drained and confused? Do you find yourself questioning things you were certain about before you talk to them? Second, notice how they respond to your successes versus your failures. Do they genuinely celebrate your wins, or do they find ways to minimize them? Do they offer comfort and support during your struggles, or do they seem almost satisfied when things go wrong for you? Third, watch how they talk about other people when those people aren't around. If they're constantly criticizing, judging, and finding fault with everyone else in their life, what makes you think you're exempt from that treatment? The mirror. But here's where this gets really deep, and this is the part most people don't want to hear. Sometimes the person doing this to you is you. Sometimes we internalize these destructive voices so completely that we don't need external enemies anymore. We become our own worst critics, our own reality distorters, our own source of psychological warfare. We replay their words in our heads long after they're gone. We question our own perceptions even when we're alone. We've learned their language so well that we speak it fluently to ourselves. This is why healing from this kind of damage is so complex. It's not just about removing toxic people from your life, though that's often necessary. It's about recognizing where you've adopted their voice as your own and learning to distinguish between their programming and your authentic self. Ancient wisdom. In ancient Chinese philosophy, there's a concept called Shen, which refers to the spirit or consciousness that resides in the heart. When someone attacks your Shen, they're not just hurting your feelings, they're damaging your connection to your own divine nature. The Buddhist tradition talks about right speech as one of the pillars of enlightened living. Wrong speech isn't just lying or gossiping, it's any communication that diminishes another person's connection to their true self. In the Taoist tradition, they understand that when you try to make someone smaller, you're actually revealing the smallness in yourself. True power never needs to diminish others to feel strong. Every wisdom tradition across the world recognizes this pattern because it's as old as human consciousness itself. There have always been people who choose to build themselves up by tearing others down, and there have always been teachings about how to recognize and protect yourself from this kind of spiritual violence. The truth they don't want you to know is this: their opinion of you is not your reality. Their version of your story is not your story. Their limitations are not your limitations. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not crazy for feeling what you feel or knowing what you know. Your perceptions are valid. Your experiences are real. Your inner knowing is trustworthy. The fact that they've tried so hard to convince you otherwise is actually proof of how powerful you really are. Weak people don't need to be systematically destroyed. Only people with genuine strength and light become targets for this kind of sustained psychological attack. Breaking free. So how do you break free from this pattern? How do you reclaim your reality when it's been so thoroughly contaminated by someone else's poison? First, you have to acknowledge what happened, not minimize it, not explain it away, not make excuses for them. You have to face the full truth of how they deliberately damaged you, and you have to feel the anger that comes with that recognition. That anger isn't wrong, that anger is sacred. It's your soul's natural response to having been violated. Don't spiritualize it away with forgiveness before you fully honored what was done to you. Second, you have to start rebuilding your relationship with your own inner authority. Start small. Notice what you like, what you want, what feels right to you without checking it against anyone else's opinion. Practice trusting your own perceptions about little things until you can trust them about big things. Third, you have to learn to distinguish between your authentic voice and their implanted voice. When you hear criticism or doubt in your head, ask yourself, does this sound like me or does this sound like them? Whose words am I thinking? Whose fears am I feeling? The healing from this kind of damage isn't just about recovery, it's about reclamation. You're not just trying to get back to who you were before they damaged you. You're trying to become who you always were underneath their programming. This is spiritual archaeology. You're digging through layers of conditioning, criticism, and contamination to find the pure gold of your original self. And that gold was never destroyed, it was just buried. Every time you choose to trust your own perception over their implanted doubt, you're doing sacred work. Every time you celebrate your own wins without needing their validation, you're breaking their spell. Every time you speak kindly to yourself instead of using their internal voice, you're performing an act of rebellion. New boundaries. Part of this healing process involves learning to set boundaries that you never knew you needed. You have to protect your energy, your peace, your developing sense of self from people who would rather see you small than see you free. This doesn't mean you have to become harsh or closed off. It means you have to become discerning. You have to learn the difference between people who genuinely support your growth and people who are invested in your limitation. Some people will not like the new boundaries you set. Some people will not like the new confidence you develop. Some people will not like the new reality you create for yourself. And their resistance to your growth is the clearest sign that those boundaries are necessary. The Phoenix. There's something beautiful that happens when you finally break free from someone who's been systematically damaging you. You don't just recover, you discover. You discover parts of yourself that were hidden, strengths that were suppressed, dreams that were dismissed. You realize that all the time you spent trying to prove yourself to them, trying to win their approval, trying to make them see your worth, all of that energy can now be redirected toward actually living your life. You start to understand that their hatred was never really about you. It was about what you represented to them. Possibility, growth, change, everything they were too afraid to pursue for themselves. Recognition power. Once you've been through this experience and healed from it, you develop an almost supernatural ability to recognize it in others. You can spot the subtle put-downs, the reality distortions, the emotional manipulation tactics from a mile away. You become a safe harbor for other people who are going through what you went through. Your healing becomes a lighthouse for others who are still lost in the fog of someone else's psychological warfare. This is how trauma transforms into wisdom. This is how your pain becomes your power. This is how your greatest wound becomes your greatest gift. The warning. But here's the warning. Once you start to see this pattern clearly, you'll see it everywhere. You'll see it in relationships, in families, in workplaces, in institutions. You'll see how normalized this kind of psychological violence has become in our culture. You'll see how many people are walking around carrying someone else's voice in their head, living someone else's version of their story, accepting someone else's limitations as their own reality. And you'll face a choice. Do you try to wake people up, or do you focus on protecting your own peace? Do you become a teacher, or do you become a hermit? There's no right answer to this question. Some people are called to heal others, and some people are called to heal themselves. Both paths are sacred. Both paths are necessary. Final truth. Here's the final truth that changes everything. The person who tried to destroy you actually gave you the greatest gift possible. They forced you to find your own inner authority. They made you dig deeper than you ever would have dug otherwise. They showed you exactly what you're made of. Without their attack, you might never have discovered your own resilience. Without their doubt, you might never have learned to trust yourself so completely. Without their hatred, you might never have learned to love yourself so fiercely. This doesn't mean you should be grateful for the abuse. This doesn't mean it was meant to happen. This doesn't mean they did you a favor. What it means is that you are powerful enough to transform even the most destructive experiences into fuel for your own evolution. You are not a victim of their hatred. You are a survivor of it. And your survival is not just personal. It's cosmic. Every time someone chooses healing over hatred, love over limitation, truth over manipulation, the entire frequency of the planet shifts. Your freedom is not just about you. Your healing is not just about you. Your choice to reclaim your reality and live from your authentic power is a revolutionary act that gives permission to everyone around you to do the same. So stop asking why they hated you. Stop trying to understand their psychology. Stop making yourself smaller to accommodate their discomfort with your light. Instead, ask yourself this. Now that you know who you really are underneath all their programming, what are you going to do with that knowledge? Now that you've reclaimed your reality, what reality are you going to create? The answer to that question is the real reason they tried to destroy you in the first place. Because they knew, even if you didn't, that once you fully stepped into your power, there would be no stopping you. And they were absolutely right.